The Los Angeles Rams plan on keeping it simple on Sunday. We're going to talk about what OC Mike LaFleur had to say about their game plan going into Sunday's matchup versus Seattle Seahawks. We're also going to talk about the official lineup for guys who will not be playing on Sunday for the Rams. Mostly guys on offense. We'll discuss that. And we're also going to discuss what Bill Belichick has to say about the idea of resting players and much more on today's episode of the Rams Digest. I'm your host, Joshua Giron. If you guys are not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor and press that subscribe button right now, as one, it doesn't cost you a thing, but two, 86.5% of you guys are watching the videos but are not subscribed to the channel. Do me a favor and press that subscribe button so you don't miss any daily Rams content here at the Rams Digest. But let's get into this first story here, as the Rams plan on keeping it simple. We're going to talk about what Mike LaFleur has to say about their game plan, and I mean, it pretty much is self-explanatory, right? The Rams are going to keep it simple. I mean, that's pretty, you can't really get much more complex than that. We'll pull up Mike LaFleur's quote in a second. But it does kind of make some sense, right? We're going into a game where you're going to rest your starters. The game doesn't mean much for you. Of course, you want to win the game, and that's probably why you're going to keep it simple. And I think the reason why this is even a conversation is because we've seen teams in the past maybe let their quarterback, right, call plays or just mix things up in terms of responsibilities on the coaching staff, and Mike LaFleur specifically had to say something about that, and we'll just pull his quote up now so you guys can see what he had to say. As he said, "I wouldn't say there's any shuffling of responsibilities or anything like that. Again, we go about our process. We stick to the book per se and adjust by the week when needed for what our guys need, because ultimately, whatever we put on a piece of paper, it's just words. The action of what those plays are come down to the guys' mindsets and the execution of those plays." And it does, again, like I said, it does make sense. You want to keep it simple. You have Jimmy G out there for sure starting, that we know, and we'll pull up the list of starters who are officially going to be resting on Sunday. But you have Jimmy G, you're going to have Blake Corum, you're going to have maybe some backup offensive linemen in the game. So just keep the game simple. Don't get too complex for them. Don't try any fancy plays. Don't try to see, oh, maybe this play will work in the playoffs for our starter, so let's try it now in the last week of the game, last week of the season. No, just keep it simple. Run up the middle, short passes with Jimmy G. Of course, they're gonna mix things up, and I'm assuming call plays similarly as to what we see when they have their starters in, just because you want the offense to kind of continue to be the same. But ultimately, I think it's going to be a pretty simple game plan. Kick a couple field goals, maybe a low-scoring game from the Rams' perspective, unless they need to kind of move the ball down the field. And we'll talk about my prediction at the end of the game, at the end of the episode. But that's kind of what makes sense here, and I think not really too big of a story. Something I just wanted to hear from Mike LaFleur, what his game plan was going into this game, and it seems like keep it simple. That's kind of the basis of what he's talking about. And so I do want to pull this up here, as we're going to have the official list for Rams players that are not playing on Sunday versus Seattle. So per Sean McVay, these are the players that are officially sitting out. So this is Adam Schefter on Twitter. We have Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyren Williams, Alaric Jackson, Kevin Dotson, and Rob Havenstein. So those are the list of starters who are not playing, and it is interesting, right? Those are three offensive linemen you're seeing, right? It's not something that's what it is, right? Three offensive linemen, your running back, your two starting receivers, your quarterback, are all going to be missing the game. And so I think that is the important key here, because the entire Rams offense essentially is not playing. So when you look at the defensive side of things, right, where are the defensive players? Why aren't they resting? Why aren't we resting Jared Verse and Braden Fisk? Well, when in the conversation that I saw from Sean McVay, essentially, he was saying that you can't rest everybody. And we'll talk about this. It actually alludes to what our Bill Belichick quote is. But you can't rest every single starter. It's just not really possible in the NFL. Of course, you want to rest as many players as you can, but Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, and Kobe Turner, I mean, those guys are first and second year players. Cam Kitchen's a rookie. There's a lot of guys on defense who are young enough, especially to expect to play the full season. And that's just because ultimately you only have 53 guys on the roster. You can't just bench everybody and then all of a sudden there's 20 guys that are suited ready to play both sides of the football. It's just not possible. It's not how the NFL works. And so that is why you only have a select few players that you can rest in a game. So that's why the Rams have only chosen these few. But that's what Bill Belichick is talking about. And we're going to pull this quote up here, and I want to get into this story here. Bill Belichick said, what? What is he talking about? Is he talking smack about the Rams? So I hate Bill Belichick because he's a Patriot. I'm just kidding. He is now actually the North Carolina head coach, which is kind of interesting. But I don't really have much hate for Bill Belichick. I was a kid watching Bill Belichick win. But I don't really get that frustrated at Bill Belichick. I do respect his opinion, and I do think it's an interesting opinion to have. We've been talking about right, benching starters and, oh my God, the game, and why are we afraid to be a certain seed? That's not just it, right? That's not the only reason why you question benching your starters. There are other factors, and maybe some people think they're blown out of proportion, but look at what Bill Belichick had to say about the situation. So, Hall of Fame coach critiques Rams controversial Week 18 strategy. That's the official story we have here for this Bill Belichick news, and I don't want to act like and pretend like Bill Belichick was specifically talking about the Rams. I think the conversation came up about the Rams or about the decision to do something like this, and they asked Bill Belichick his opinion, and this is what he had to say about it, and we'll just pull his quote up here. So, Bill Belichick, we have two separate quotes actually from him, so I'll start with this first half here. He says, and talking about resting starters, you can only have 7 inactive guys, which is why the Rams specifically have 7 on their offense that are being rested. 7 inactive guys. Who are they? And it's tough to go to your team and say, well, we're not going to play you guys over here, but the rest of you guys, you get out there. We don't really care about you if you get hurt. That doesn't matter. But these 6 or 7 guys, we're going to protect, right? And again, I don't want to blow this out of proportion. I don't want to blow, first of all, what Bill Belichick is saying out of proportion. He is giving his opinion on his side of things from what his perspective was as a head coach of the Patriots for so many years, or a coach in the NFL in general. But it is kind of important, right? If Bill Belichick says it's important, I think it's important. And I think some people as some fans, maybe we may forget what the locker room is like, and maybe these players, how they may feel. And maybe we blow it out of proportion. Maybe we assume that the players will be a little more sensitive than they actually are, whatever you want to say. At the end of the day, I think if Bill Belichick is saying this is important, this is something that you have to kind of pay attention to. The way you look at it, right? How do you choose those 7 guys? The Rams chose 7 guys on offense. Did it bother Jared Verse at all? Did it bother Braden Fisk at all? Did it bother Kobe Turner at all? I think all those guys have enough trust in Sean McVay and what the team is doing to understand why they are doing what they're doing, especially as first and second year guys. I think you're still in that mindset of do whatever the coaches kind of say, kind of mindset. And these veterans, you understand why we're doing what we're doing. And I think nowadays, players and fans, we have so much exposure to what goes on in NFL locker rooms and what goes on, through social media and things of that nature. So you could even see an explanation, even if the coach doesn't explain to you why Matthew Stafford is sitting and Jared Verse has to play. You could kind of figure things out yourself, right? Through social media, through some stories that we're reading here, right? You can understand that perspective. And you can also understand if maybe some players may be bothered by it, but I don't think it's really that big of a deal. I respect Bill Belichick's perspective on it, but I think for the most part, the players understand, hey, I'm 23 years old. Matthew Stafford is 36. Maybe you say Puka Nacua is a second-year player. Well, Puka Nacua was banged up this year, right? He only played 11 games, and we need him if we've seen what the team is like when he's not playing. We absolutely need him to be healthy and ready to go. So I think for the most part, everyone in the locker room will kind of understand the perspective. But I do understand where Bill Belichick's coming from. And we do have a second quote from Bill Belichick to pull up here just to kind of continue what he was saying. He said, "You can't say that to the team. That doesn't resonate well at all, nor should it. So I always had a hard time with that one. Now, if a guy was fighting an injury, Rob Havenstein, for example, not that Bill Belichick said that, but in Rams situation, right? Rob Havenstein dealing with a shoulder injury, fighting an injury, and everybody understood that the guy was fighting an injury. Okay, that's one thing. But to say, well, you guys are important, but the other guys aren't. We don't care what happens to you. Go get out there and play. That's not a message I could ever send to the team. Even though there were people in the organization that wanted me to send that, I just couldn't do it." And so again, I don't think Bill Belichick is really criticizing any team who does this. I think Bill Belichick is just saying, that's my perspective. That's how I feel. I just don't think it was right telling guys, hey, these guys are important, these guys aren't, or these guys are a little bit more important than these guys, right? And that's kind of his perspective. I respect it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think the Rams are really broken in the locker room and shattered over this situation. Again, the entire offense is resting, so maybe the defensive guys, if anybody, would be a little bit upset about this fact. But so far, so good. I don't think anyone's really going to overreact to it. I think everyone is understanding of the situation. Again, I think trust Sean McVay and respect Sean McVay enough to trust that this is why what he's doing is right for the team. And I think that's ultimately what it is. Interesting to hear from Bill Belichick, but ultimately not that big of a deal. I think the Rams will survive resting their 7 important key players on offense, and that's kind of my perspective on it. So let's get into the last bit of things to talk about here, as we want to give a game prediction, and I do want to pull up a couple quick little screenshots here. I wanted you guys to see what other people are saying about this game. So first of all, some key information here as the game's being played at SoFi. We have the money line for the game. Seahawks are minus 258. Rams are plus 210. So of course, if you are betting on this game, which I'm not encouraging you to, but if you were a betting man and you were betting on this game, you would be more inclined to bet on the Seattle Seahawks, as they are the favorites in this game. But if you look here at the prediction, we have the spread here of minus 6.5. So they are predicting that the Seahawks not only win, they have a 6.5 point spread, so they are going to win by 7 points or more, is essentially what that is saying. Still kind of a low scoring game-ish, right, that they're predicting, 30 over under being 38.5. You look here at NFL.com's predictions and all their experts and what they had to say: 27-17, 27-17, 23-15, 20-10, 27-14. What I just said, right? I said the Rams may actually be on the low scoring side of things, a couple field goals, maybe one touchdown. Maybe the Rams are scoring a little bit less in this game. That's kind of what the experts are saying as well. They're predicting that the Seattle Seahawks will win about 27-17, 20-10 kind of range of that kind of score frame. So that's what NFL.com has to say about it. We'll see what other experts have to say as we're pulling up this screenshot from Sports Illustrated. I know there's a bunch of games here, but you want to focus in a little bit toward the middle there. Under the Washington Commanders and the Green Bay Packers, you see the Seattle Seahawks. We have most of their experts as well predicting that the Seahawks will win. Only one predictor that the expert predicting that the Rams will win the game on Sunday. And then we'll pull up, stay here for you so you guys can look at the last screenshot we have. A little bit smaller, I know, tough to see, but this is ESPN's predictions. Their experts, what they had to say, as we have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 10 people, somewhere around that range. Only 4 of them saying that the Rams will win the game versus Seattle Seahawks. So that's kind of what the experts have to say about it. Of course, we're talking about specific groups of experts, NFL.com, ESPN, and Sports Illustrated, but that's kind of their prediction. And it's just kind of interesting to see that perspective from people who aren't coming from the Rams mindset side of things. I want the Rams to win the game. I want the Rams to avoid a certain scenario, right? I don't want the Rams to somehow, some way, in my opinion, a doomsday scenario facing the Detroit Lions at home. I'd rather avoid that situation. Although it'd be a fun game to watch, I'd rather avoid that situation, and I want the Rams to win their game, take care of business, hopefully have a home game versus a team like the Washington Commanders is kind of the preferred route I've been talking about. So that is the route I want the Rams to take. That is why I'm rooting for the Rams to win. I believe in Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G could get the Rams to a victory along with a guy like Blake Corum moving the ball down the field. I think it could happen. I think the Rams can be effective on offense. I think the Rams are going to win this game 21-17. I think the Seattle Seahawks have been struggling themselves on offense. The Rams defense is still going to play. They've been still hungry and probably fighting for some incentives as well. Maybe Jared Verse wants to get his sack numbers up a little bit. I think they're going to be ready to go regardless of the situation for the Rams defense. Seattle has not been looking great on offense, not really super cohesive, not consistent. I think they're going to be the ones scoring a little bit less. The Rams will get a couple touchdowns. Jimmy G is going to surprise the Seattle Seahawks defense. You see the backup quarterback, you say, okay, cool, we'll take care of business. Jimmy G can move the ball down the field. He's ready to go. We've already talked about he has a resume to build on for his future, right, potentially. And so that's my prediction, 21-17. The Rams will win a low-scoring-ish game, and they will take care of business, finalize themselves into that 3rd seed, and face the Washington Commanders at home for their wild card playoff matchup. That's going to do it for me on today's episode of the Rams Digest. I'm your host, Joshua Giron, and I am out.